latest major protest against plans to house hundreds of asylum seekers at a military base.
68 masked groups nationwide. Public disorder up 43%. Government trust fell by 31%. These crowds are no longer pleading. They are taking action. K-Star announced plans to fill military bases with illegal migrants from Africa and the Middle East, citing overflowing hotels. Government kept the specific figures to avoid sparking panic before Christmas. Opposition claims up to 20,000 illegals will be moved in, accusing Stara of surrendering Britain without a fight. The breaking point came when 600 cadets were removed from Kroger Base to make room for new residents. At 5:36 p.m., masked mobs were sighted. At 5:41 p.m., 2 police vans were destroyed. In 80 seconds, the broadcast cut due to technical faults. At 5:51 p.m., total chaos erupted. The boat influx has paralyzed 3-star hotels nationwide. While they get free accommodation, thousands of veterans remain on the streets. Military bases once housing paratroopers and shock troops are now filled with waves of arrivals from Africa and the Middle East. This time, the crisis isn't confined to city centers. Communities besieged, police retreating, and local services warning of immediate collapse. And still, Stara insists this is a necessary measure. Within 2 hours, the unrest spread to cities. From London to Belfast, crowds chanted, "Starmer surrendered Britain," demanding the immediate dissolution of Parliament. 36 arrests were made. That was just the beginning. Masked groups launched glass bottles and fired fireworks directly into police lines. Random fires were reported at 14 hotels. At 3 migration centers, police deployed riot vans and established emergency barricades. Meanwhile, as villages see a spike in shoplifting and harassment, police are refusing to report the background or religion of the perpetrators to avoid causing offense. The consequences were immediate. The moment a base is announced for illegal migrants, property within a 5M radius becomes a toxic asset. Estate agents are now reporting house value crashes of 20 to 40%. By evening, street violence reports surged by 16%. 121 people were hospitalized on both sides. Protesters branded Stilharma with accusations of two-tier justice, where a grandmother living in the village for 70 years can face arrest for hate speech if she harshly speaks out against her new neighbors, while police platoon are deployed to stand guard, protecting the asylum seekers. In South Birmingham, a police radio crackled with the message, "Sector 16 is totally lost." They stopped chanting and started storming. In Northern Ireland, riot squads launched a violent counteroffensive. Witnesses reported over 82 Musk groups clashing directly with police lines. Then something truly chilling happened. A leak hit the internet purportedly exposing the Star's real internal plan. Online critics immediately branded it Prime Minister's scorched earth strategy, noting a deliberate pattern. Labour is specifically targeting conservative rural heartlands for migrant placement. The reported objective is to permanently alter district demographics by settling thousands of young men from Africa and the Middle East. Facebook comments erupted with the realization. In 5 to 8 years, a traditional conservative stronghold becomes a multicultural district that votes Labour, and then an old campaign promise resurfaced. Starr's own admission that to fully realize his vision for Britain, he would need 10 years in power. That was a breaking point. Without waiting for any official comment, the crowd in Parliament Square accused Starr of hypocrisy and demanded his immediate resignation. And despite this tidal wave of rural fury, Karma responds with the same technical excuse. It is a necessary cost-saving measure. He called for an immediate end to the unrest, threatening severe consequences for all rears. Meanwhile, on the Kent coastline, black-clad groups were seen intercepting more than 120 illegals within 6 hours. "We're taking the situation into our own hands," one member said in a TikTok clip that reached 2 million views. The media labeled them far-right extremists, while local residents described them as patriots. This isn't accidental. This isn't just bad planning. This is what happens when a prime minister weaponizes the migration system to punish political opponents, prioritizing a 10-year plan to engineer a new electorate over the safety of existing communities. And the British public knows it. In regional polling, 76% believe their towns are being targeted intentionally for political revenge. 64% say the police have prioritized the protection of the facilities over the taxpayers. 59% blame Starma directly for the destruction of rural value. And more than 2 million residents in affected shears report feeling like strangers in their own villages. Suddenly, Keir Starmer made an unexpected announcement. According to a statement, former military bases were being used to house incoming migrants under stricter accommodation rules. We promise a tough approach to illegal arrivals. We are enforcing it, he said. Within 2 hours, public opinion split apart. Migrant rights advocates argued that such facilities were far too harsh, calling barracks an unacceptable form of housing. Critics counted that placing newcomers on military bases was, in their words, the political equivalent of surrendering Britain without a single shot fired. The Prime Minister tried to appeal to both sides and ended up satisfying neither. Rural medical practices describe unsafe saturation levels. A confidential briefing leaked from the ministry even uses the term infrastructure limits breached. That is official code for a total loss of operational control, and the villagers feel it. Medical practices describe unsafe saturation levels. A confidential briefing leaked from the ministry even uses the term infrastructure limits breached. That is official code for a total loss of operational control, and the villages feel it. In quiet parishes like Wethersfield, Scampton, and Crowbar, locals report watching their heritage dismantled faster than the press can report it. Historic barracks once occupied by British elite troops are now accommodation blocks for unvetted males who came by the small boats. Cadet training grounds have been requisitioned as processing centers for the overflow from city hotels. Concurrently, the financial damage accelerates. Retrofitting costs for these sites have spiraled to match the hotel bills they were meant to replace, despite promises of savings. Factor in the private security contracts, the heated tents, the logistics, and the collapse of local housing markets, and the true economic hit to these regions is incalculable. For rural economies already on the brink, this isn't just pressure, it is financial ruin. The official target of 5,000 migrants is now widely suspected by Nigel Farage and analysts to be a cover for a real influx of 20,000 until the summer. Other observers are asking, why are we prioritizing foreign nationals over our own veterans sleeping rough? Ask the evicted cadets. Ask the families whose property values plummeted by 40%. Ask the insurers hiking premiums because of the high-rises new neighbors. The reality is undeniable. These villages were never built to house thousands of aliens with no connection to the area. When the local outrage exploded, every village constable looked to headquarters for permission to defend the residents. That permission was denied. Instead, area commanders received a chilling directive, one that locals describe as a betrayal of their tax money. Prioritize the facility. Shield the asylum seekers. Hate speech. That is a weaponized term now used to silence a 70-year-old grandmother who has lived there for decades. While the men illegally arriving are shielded from criticism, the authorities didn't arrest the vocal locals because they pose a threat. They arrested them because Starmer's government is enforcing a political transformation. Multiple sources from within the administration confirm the same strategy. Every enforcement action is now calculated to suppress opposition to the demographic shift. It makes no difference if house prices crash by 40%, if insurance premiums skyrocket, or if women feel unsafe walking past the new fences. Westminster's priority is not rural safety. It is the 10-year consolidation of power. Labor strategists have become so focused on their scorched earth policy that they would rather sacrifice the safety of the countryside than lose a chance to punish conservative voters. The UK is now the only nation where police units are deployed not to catch border breakers, but to protect them from the very citizens who pay their wages. The cabinet had access to alarming data from Wethersfield, warning of rising shoplifting, harassment of young girls, and the total erosion of community trust. Every single briefing note highlighted the risks of placing thousands of young men in isolated villages. Starmer disregarded all of them. Analysts suggest the Prime Minister personally authorized the expansion because it aligns with a long-term goal of demographic engineering, electoral realignment. Meanwhile, British families see their life savings wiped out, veterans sleep in the cold, and villagers are told to accept their new reality. A government that replaces its own population becomes a government that declares war on its own heritage. This is how a culture loses its footing, not in a single dramatic defeat, but in hundreds of silent evictions. Downing Street can bury the crime stats. Star in Theory can classify the base list, but the villages felt the betrayal this week. The countryside is being managed by technocrats who view rural heritage as a logistical inconvenience. If these historic sites were being restored for thousands of British veterans sleeping in doorways, the funding would be deemed impossible. But because the occupants are unvetted arrivals from the Channel, the budgets are unlimited and the local youth are locked out. And that is a precise moment a government stops protecting its past and starts engineering a different future. This agenda isn't just housing policy. It is a revelation, a signal that the quiet lanes and market towns no longer belong to families who tended them, paid their taxes, and respected the law, but to a manufactured demographic shift that this administration refuses to halt, proving that the scorched earth strategy is not a conspiracy theory, but the new national reality. Meanwhile, small business owners report finding their delivery vans broken into and tools stolen. Yet, police advise them against filing formal reports to avoid insurance complications. Local economies in these districts are stalling as residents begin to avoid areas dominated by the new security perimeters. The government promised the bases would bring local trade, but the reality is a closed-loop system where outside contractors extract a profit. Taxpayers are essentially funding their own economic exclusion. Rural healthcare is facing a similar fracture. While villages wait weeks for GP appointments, the base residents are provided with dedicated on-site medical teams paid for by the state. It is a parallel welfare system operating behind barbed wire, prioritizing new arrivals over tax-paying locals. Policing resources have been quietly diverted from town centers to perimeter patrols to manage the static population. Officers privately admit their primary directive has shifted from community safety to asset protection. This leaves outlying farms and business owners exposed to conventional crime with significantly slower response times. The political geography of these sites is equally telling to analysts. Every major location selected sits within a constituency that traditionally votes against labor. This fuels the accusation that the policy is a targeted mechanism to destabilize opposition heartlands. It is demographic engineering masquerading as crisis management. The temporary nature of these camps is another point of intense contention. Planning loopholes have been utilized to bypass local objections, setting a legal precedent that removes a community's right to refuse. Once the infrastructure for thousands is built, experts warn it will become a permanent fixture of the landscape. The visual symbolism is impossible to ignore. Barracks that once housed the nation's defenders are now closed to homeless British veterans. The military covenant has been effectively voided by administrative decree. Trust in central government has evaporated in these regions. People feel that the social contract, the idea that you pay taxes to be protected, has been broken. Star's silence on the full list of future sites suggests a strategy of incremental expansion to avoid a unified national backlash. But the pattern is clear to anyone watching. This is a transfer of resources, safety, and priority away from the settled population. The countryside is no longer just a place to live. It has become the staging ground for a radical political experiment. The silence from national broadcasters is perhaps the most telling aspect of this crisis. While local forums burn with anger, the evening news presents a sanitized version of events, filming carefully away from the new security perimeters. The psychological toll on these communities is becoming a quiet epidemic. Residents who have lived in open high-rise villages for generations are now installing CCTV cameras and aggressive security lighting. The era of leaving the back door unlocked is over, ended not by local crime waves, but by government policy. Tourism, the lifeblood of many of these rural districts, is evaporating before their eyes. Families are canceling holidays to regions now associated with security zones and social unrest. The government promised compensation for local businesses, but shop owners say the funds are inaccessible or non-existent. It is a managed decline of the rural economy. Strategically, this move signals a total abandonment of border control. You do not build semi-permanent housing for thousands of people if you intend to stop the boat. You build it because you accept they are here to stay. These bases are the physical admission of defeat. It creates a visible hierarchy of care, where the citizen soldier ranks below the illegal arrival. Legal experts warn that the use of emergency powers to bypass planning permission